Hello world, welcome to Java training, and in today's video we are going to discuss about the variables and methods in Java. So in my previous lecture I have told you that the attributes of the class are converted as fields of Java class and the activities of a class is converted into methods of the Java class. So there are more variables apart from fields, so let's discuss about them. Basically variables are of three types: fields, local variable, and parameters. So you can consider field as global variables, but as there is no direct concept of global variables in Java and there are different interpretation towards global variables, hence I'll avoid using the term global variables in my lectures. But in this reference where I'm mentioning fields as global variable, so global variables are the variables that can be accessed across in any of the methods. So these fields are of two types, static and non-static, and these fields will have some access specifier like public, private, default, or protected. All these variables, whether it's fields, local variables, or parameters, they will be of some data type, and data types I have already covered in my last lecture. It can be primitive data type or it can be non-primitive data type. So the variables of non-primitive data types are referred as. So I'm just giving the overview of the theory here. All these things I will explain later on in the Eclipse so that you'll get the clear picture. There is no concept of static and non-static and access specifier in local variables and parameters. All these points I'll show you in Eclipse. Just bear with me for some time. Coming back to methods. So methods are also of two types: static methods and non-static methods, and they will also be assigned with some access specifier like public, private, default, or protected. And the return data type of these methods can also be of two types: primitive data type as well as non-primitive data types. So this is the overview of variables and methods in Java. Now let me open the Eclipse and show you how this works. So I'll create one class with the name variables and methods. I'll create variables one by one. So this is int a, static int b, string s1, static string s2. So these are the variables, the first variable. So this is non-static field. And what's the data type? This is primitive data type. So this a is of primitive data type int. Second one, what is this? This is static field, and this is also of primitive data type int. Coming to next variable, so this is non-static field of non-primitive data type string, because this s1 is of string type. String is a class, so all the variables of some class type are non-primitive data type. So this is non-primitive. So this is known as non-static reference variable or field, whatever you want to say. And the next one is static field. This is also of type non-primitive. All non-primitive are reference variables, so this will also be called as static reference variable or static field, whatever you want to say. I have covered this portion, fields of static and non-static type, which can have primitive and non-primitive data type. And this will have some access specifiers also. So when we do not specify any access specifier, it is taken as default. So default is not a keyword for any specifier. It means that by default, whatever access specifier it takes is known as default access specifier. So we can basically use any access specifier. For example, in the second variable static int b, I can put it as private, and third I can use protected. Next one you can say it as public. So this one a is having default access specifier, this is private, this is protected, and this is public. So we have covered this part. Now before going to local variables and parameter, let's cover methods. We'll create two methods. First one is m1, so I'll write down as public void m1, and second one I will create static method, private static. Return type I'll give any other return type, int m2. If there is some return type associated with any method, so you have to make sure that you are returning some value of the same data type. So I will, for instance, so that the error goes off, I'll return 2. 2 is of type integer, so you can return only the same data type which is mentioned as the return data type. And here I will write int I and a string s. Okay, I'm just writing down as random variables. Method are of two types, static and non-static. So when nothing is mentioned with the method, it will be treated as non-static, and this one is a static with some return value of primitive or non-primitive data type. So void is a special case here. Void means that this method is not returning any data, but if the method is returning any static data, it has to be either of primitive data type or non-primitive data type. So in this second case, it is returning as primitive data type int. In the first case, if I'll write down as string, okay, and I have to return some string value so that error goes. So in this case, the return type is non-primitive data type, and here the return type is primitive data type, and the methods are associated with some access specifier as well. So this is public, this is private, these are the access specifier, and when I will not mention any access specifier, it will be known as default access specifier. So this is default. So we have covered this part as well. So far we have covered these two parts. Now we will cover local variables and parameters. So what are local variables? So local variables are the variables that are defined within a method. So if I will define one local variable int j, so this is local variable. I can write down one more local variable string k. And what are parameters? So parameters are the variables that are accepted in the method definition. Inside these circular braces, whatever variables method is accepting will be known as parameters. Now let's see the second part. What does it say? There is no concept of static and non-static as well as access specifier. So we cannot write down static with variables. It will give error. Remove invalid modifier. Similarly, with parameters also you cannot use the word static. Again, it will say remove invalid modifier, and you cannot use the access specifier also. So if you'll use public here, again it is invalid. For parameter also, if you will use public, again it cannot be used. So static, non-static, public is not applicable for local variables and parameters. Okay, one more thing. So here for fields, when you are not writing down anything, they are considered as non-static. But here, if you are not writing down anything, that doesn't mean that they are non-static. There is no concept of static and non-static in local variable and parameters. Now coming to this part, data type for local variables and parameters. So this parameter, if you see, this is parameter of primitive data type. What is this? This is local variable of primitive data type. This is local variable of non-primitive data type string, or it can be also known as local reference variable. Variables of all non-primitive data types are referred as reference variable, and as this is a local variable, it will be local reference variable. And similarly, this one is parameter of non-primitive data type. You can also call it as reference variable or reference parameter, whatever you want to call. Just remember that variables of all non-primitive types are reference variable. So I think we have covered every point that we have discussed in this slide. We have covered this. We have seen static, non-static, and access specifier. Data types also we have seen. We have seen local variable, parameter concept. We have also seen that there is no concept of static, non-static, and access specifier in local variable and parameters. We have also seen the data types like primitive and non-primitive kind of local variable and parameters. We have also seen methods with static and non-static and with some access specifier. And we have also seen that methods can have any of these return data type, primitive or non-primitive. And there is a special return type known as void, which indicates that method does not return anything. So this was the video about variables and method in Java.